Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not inflated. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Ferdinand T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, and for you freaky motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. On today's episode, we are getting into my bag, y'all. And I'm not talking about the whole bag. I'm talking about the thing that made me a doctor. I'm talking about rape culture. Yes. And joining me for this conversation is Michelle Shakina. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So if you all did not hear her last episode, I need you to stop what you're doing. Okay, you can finish this episode. Like, come on, you're already here. But after that, go back and listen to that episode, understand her story, know her story, and appreciate her story, and learn and improve your own story. So definitely go back and listen to that. But for today, we will be talking about rape culture. But before we get into that conversation, Michelle, do you mind introducing yourself to the audience once more for those who are new to the podcast? And on top of that, let them know about your website. So, how,
Okay.
all the great things about you.
Thank you. Of course I will. Well, I was a stay-at-home mom for many years, married for over 20 years with two kids that needed a lot of attention because they had some issues. So I was that stay-at-home mom that did the PTA president thing, that did the room parent. I was active in the community. I did all of that. It looked like a fairy tale life. And at some point that ended. And my ex-husband, who had a secret life, brought me into a world of, I call it the Alice in Wonderland world, that was filled with sex and drugs and alcohol and secrets and deviance and all of that. So I'll stop there, maybe, or do you want me to keep going?
Oh, the website.
Oh, the website is from thefloortothedoor.com. It is my story of going from the floor to the door. I'm in the process of writing actually 2 books. The first one is that title. And that it means a lot to me because I literally was on the floor and went to the door and escaped and ran out. And so that's the website. On the website is, you can contact me if you need anything, any sort of help, any references of how to get help, if you need a listening ear, if you need coaching, any of that. I can certainly help you. I also have a blog on there that I write pieces from my book, things coming from my heart. Hopefully it'll open your eyes a little bit on something that you might be questioning or don't even realize. And some other things on there. That's my website, from thefloortothedoor.com. You have to put that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. So you all, it will be in the show notes for anybody who would like to connect with her. Again, listen to that last episode as well. And then after you listen to both of her episodes, you can listen to everybody else's. Okay. Just, but let's get into this conversation related to rape culture. The first topic of today is about consent, and consent is important. And I like to tell people, one, yes, it needs to be enthusiastic. Yes, but yes means yes, no means no, and maybe just does not exist. Okay. So that's usually how I introduce those conversations about consent. But Michelle, how important is consent to you?
Extremely important. Consent is everything.
Mhm.
Um, if you don't give consent, if you don't have consent, you stop. That's all.
Mhm.
Consent is a big stop sign.
Agreed. And I don't like that we're in a culture here in the US, or actually you might as well say globally. In a lot of societies, you see that consent is like the last thing that anybody really acknowledges. It's all about the brutality, it's all about the
Mhm.
forcing other people, the coercion and persuasion of other people, and making them do things that makes them uncomfortable and don't make them feel whole. I For me, I strive to incorporate consent in everything that I do. I know some of that is because of past traumas, but also do that so that other people don't have to experience the same things that I've experienced or that I've gone through, and also for them to feel heard in a situation. Because once you start being consent for, once you start allowing people to say their piece, provide their perspective on things, and give the information that you need, it gives you an opportunity to make a decision as well.
Yeah.
And when you reciprocate that and you provide that information to them, they can make a better decision about how they choose to move forward, how they want
Mhm.
to interact with you. Like consent gives you opportunity to really communicate your needs, your wants, your desires, your passions, the things that will make you
Mhm.
happy, the things that you want for yourself as it relates to a relationship or just in work itself. Like it's very important. It's such a small thing, but it has such a major impact.
Mhm. Very true. Very, very true.
And I know one of the things that we talked about within
Mhm.
the intake meeting
Mhm.
um, was that sexual violence happens within, relationships, as well
Mhm.
as it's something that is very prevalent in queer spaces, especially in the gay
Yes.
community, like gay men's
Mhm.
relationships. So, what is your sentiment on those issues of sexual violence within relationships?
Well, that's exactly what I experienced with sexual violence. I
Mm.
experienced it in the bedroom with just the two of us, and I experienced it with him trafficking me. So, with the sexual violence in the bedroom, it was a matter of strangulation to the point where I'd be passed out and I'd come back and he'd still be having sex with me.
Mhm.
He'd be behind me and doing that, um, or on top of me, face to face, or putting a belt around my neck, from behind me, and thinking that he was doing something that was really cool and sexy and kinky, but yet it's not something that I agreed to. It
Mm,
wasn't like, oh, I want to do this. It was like, okay, choking thing, great, that's sexy. To some people, it is, it can be, but you don't make your partner pass out. And if you do, you don't keep having sex with them. That's sexual violence. That is considered rape. I was
mhm,
told by a trauma specialist that if it is unwilling, then that is rape. So non consensual is rape, unwilling is rape. Even if it's something that's way out of the ordinary, you have to say, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this
mhm,
hurting you? Are you okay with this? And yes is the only answer you get. Are you sure? Yes. Okay.
mhm,
When you're in the throes of it, maybe, and you're doing something, are you okay? Is this okay still? Yes. And if, I mean, come on, we know grunts, groans, acts of pain, sounds of pain, you stop. You just
mhm,
stop. You don't keep going. You don't push forward. You don't push in more. That's not going to help unless that person tells you that they want it. But try and think of it. If they tell you that they want it, are they doing it for you or are they doing it for them?
mm,
Are they doing it to please you or are they doing it for them? They're usually doing it to please you if it's hurting them to that extent, unless that's something that you know of that they're into because you learned it outside of the bedroom. But if at that moment they decide to do that, they're just trying to please you.
mm.
So any
Yeah.
conversations outside of the bedroom in that realm can be used inside. But if all of a sudden their behavior changes in the bedroom, they're trying to impress you, they're trying to please you, those sorts of things. As far as like the gay community, it's really sad because the community, and of which I have many close to me involved, or I don't know how you say it, but including my own child. It's so hard out there, especially now with the laws that are going on, and it's scary. And you would think and hope that we all say love is love, but yet there's so much domestic violence. And I think that the reason, sorry, I think that the reason is because there must be stuff underneath that's going on. Like, I know a lot of gay men that are young that, come to me and talk to me as if I'm, their friend or their sister or their mom. And, because their parents don't accept them. Well, if you don't work on that kind of stuff, it's going to come out. And it usually comes out in the form of domestic violence or sexual violence.
Mm.
And for my situation, it's assumed based on behavior and things that he said that my ex-husband is bisexual, but will not come out at all. A lot of people around him know it. They can see it. His behavior exerts this, but he will not come out and say it. And because of that, he put me in situations that he might have wanted to be in himself. And that means with multiple men that I did not give consent to be with, or in, a back room with the door locked, which I did not give consent to, or, crawling on the floor to go down on somebody that he knows, which I really did not want to do or give consent to, which he later on said that he regrets having me do. But I mean, like, he used to say to me, I'd love to see you crawl on the floor of, one of those movie theaters and give a blowjob to everybody. And I'm the mother of his child. I was his wife. I was loyal. Nobody came near me. I made his breakfast, his lunch, his dinners. He had notes in them. Something was really off, because that's something that I don't know what you're watching to think of that and think that you can bring that into realistic terms, but something's definitely wrong there. Having me call him by other people's names, other men's names, some that he had me do things with, or people that he really liked for whatever reason, and would record me. He'd grab his phone and either make a video of me on top of him, or he would put the audio, and it was always something like that. Pictures and videos, you have to really be careful. My thing is now, like, bring it out. I did anything I could, because he was not nice to me until we were having sex, because he had to get me there. But there were certain ways that he did get me there that weren't nice. It was through drugs. It was through alcohol. It was through coercion and lots of grooming. I mean, basically from the minute I met him, it was lots of grooming. And it escalated very, very slowly until the end. In the end, it just went, like, he just took it and went up that escalator as fast as he possibly could. But it was very slowly for a lot of years. And at first, he was doing things secretly on his own without me. And, we have since seen websites that he's looked at, or places he's been, having to Uber home, or massage parlors that he used to go to, he finally told me, things like that. And then when I had told him, after my traumatic event, losing somebody, that I wanted to live my life to its fullest, I feel like it validated him in everything. It justified everything that he was already doing, to the point where he's like, awesome, like, now I could really roll with this. And I really did not know what I was saying and who I was saying it to. I had no idea. To me, it just meant, like, really, let's enjoy every moment, whether it be at home or out, or, let's go watch the sunset or the sunrise, instead of sleeping all day, or whatever it was, because he liked to sleep.
The Holiloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Soliloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Soliloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation.
Just meant like really let's enjoy every moment, whether it be at home or out, or let's go watch the sunset or the sunrise, instead of sleeping all day or whatever it was, because you like to sleep. It was more of that. It wasn't like take all of my childhood wounds and tell everybody and have me take off my clothes or give me something and a drink where I would see myself change within an hour or less. I was a totally different person. I look at pictures now of myself back then and I don't even recognize her. And I say her because I have disassociated myself with that person. Yeah. So there's that. And that is something, it's another word, is disassociation. I should say it slower, probably. Disassociation. It's, one time I was on a table and placed on there. Well, I was sitting because we were at, someone's house, we were having fun. And I thought, all right, this will be safe because there was another female there. And then she left. And then I was there with my ex-husband and two other guys. And I thought these guys were like my brothers. They were cool. But my ex controlled the situation with the drugs and the drinking. And he would pour them or they would pour them. And he would go around each person's face and, sniff and do this and do that. And then it was like, oh, here, do it off of her. And then I was placed on a table. And before I knew it, I was getting orally raped and generally raped in the sense that they were allowed to do whatever they wanted except penetration, in a sense. And he kept it. I mean, I kept trying to sit up and I'd be pushed down, saying like, no, you want it. No, you love this. No, you want this. And before I knew it, I was so incoherent and inebriated that I couldn't even control my own body, in the sense that I couldn't sit up. And at some point, and I talked to my therapist about this, who actually had to convince me that this was domestic violence. That's how we justify actions because we're so brainwashed and gaslit. She had told me that, and I, to say this, it's pretty heavy, but I said if that were the case and I didn't want it, why would it feel good? Why would I have an orgasm if I didn't want it? Because even though in your head it's non-consensual, your body doesn't always know that. And there are nerve sensations and there are nerve endings. And it's just like if someone puts food in your throat, you're going to swallow it. It's almost like you can't stop it. Have you ever stopped going to the bathroom when you're urinating? It's not easy, right? It's the same. Listen, it's the same genitalia. It's the same function. So she told me that even sometimes when children are being touched inappropriately, what have you, their bodies, react to it. And there's a lot of shame there. So even, as adults, it's true. But what happens is, at least for me, is the disassociation. So there's a few things here. So disassociation can happen when you're drinking and when you're dreaming. People do it when they hurt themselves, self-harm. So I remember that a lot of times I was put in these situations and my mind would go elsewhere, or it would just get numb. Kind of like if you ever look, I don't know if they still have them, but if you look at a picture that's like a 3D picture and you have to kind of relax your eyes and your brain so you could see it separate, it's almost like that's what you do in order to go somewhere else. But at some point, your brain and your body have to come back together. And a lot of times that can take years because you can walk around this world and function and you could still be disassociated with your body and your brain. And that's why people do yoga or meditation Um, I had a self harming phase out of nowhere. And I didn't understand it because I'm a healthcare worker and I'm a mother and I'm the one who helps everybody. But at some point, it actually happened by accident first. Um, and I burned myself by accident. Ladies, for those of you that are curling your hair and you somehow the curling iron always ends up in the air and you go to catch it, which you should not do. And it burned right now, right? Don't ask. So, but then,
Learning something
right,
new.
right, exactly. But what happened, or a flat iron, and what happened was whatever was going on in my head at that moment, I forgot about it. And that's why, kids or whatever, people do drugs is to forget about it that moment.
Mm,
That's why some people eat too much or overeat, some of us, or we watch TV all the time and we're binge watching whatever for days because we don't want to face reality. Or sometimes it's the flip side, you need a break from reality. So sometimes the pain is too much where, right, you do that, or it's a way to bring your body and your mind back because it shocks the nervous system, just like drugs do, just like rape does. So there's that. So that's something to really be mindful of and aware of if you've gone through trauma. Are my brain and my body aligned together? Do they feel connected? And a lot of times it's not. It's just not. They're like if
yeah.
you find yourself zoning out a lot, there's a reason for that. And there's ways to do it where you come back together in a healthy way.
Hmm.
Hurting yourself is obviously not a good one. Drinking too much is not a good
And I'm glad that you mentioned those because, like, most definitely in like the atmosphere that we live in, the society that we live in, and the messages that's pushed, the narratives that are pushed, we are given so many vices. We're given so many false coping
one.
mechanisms, and escapism is extremely
Yeah.
pushed on everybody's. We have to
Yep.
escape our problems rather than deal with our problems. It's because that's
Yes.
easier. And
Yes.
drugs is just one of those things to help us escape from it, to help us not deal
Absolutely.
with it. Alcohol, weed, marijuana,
Yep.
well, I was
All
about
of
to
that.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
like cocaine, all the drugs,
Mm-hmm.
everything, sex even, is
Mm-hmm.
a way for us to remove ourselves from the things that we're dealing with rather than facing those things. We'll rather
Mm-hmm.
find those little nuggets of pleasure in order to keep us going just yet another day
Mm-hmm.
rather than accepting that, okay, this is the thing that happened. This is the thing that's hurting me in this moment. This is something that is going on, be it financially or any type of trauma or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case is. We'll
Right.
rather not acknowledge those things because it's easier to sweep it up under the rug. It's easier. Life seems easier to not address it. But at the end of the day, we have to come to a point to recognize that it's still under the rug. It's still right there. It has not been
Absolutely.
swept outside. It has not
Absolutely.
been taken care of. And until
Right.
we do take care of it, when we do indulge in those escapist things, when we do indulge in those vices, it's a little bit different then. Now I'm getting high without the drama. I'm getting high
Right.
without the trauma.
Right.
I'm drinking I was about to say drinking marijuana. I'm drinking alcohol
Right.
without the trauma. I'm just enjoying life in a way that I'm choosing to enjoy it
Mm-hmm.
without anything negative that's impacting it because I've dealt with that. I've dealt with the filth that was behind. Well, I don't want to call it filth because it kind of leads
Right.
into the ideal of shaming, but
Yeah.
I've dealt with the hurt and pain that I was trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can continue to move forward.
Correct.
And another thing I wanted to go back to is within like just how like having those conversations and understanding what your sexual partners want and their desires are. And I know like most definitely young people, and I've definitely was young myself, still young.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes, you
like
are.
when I was much younger than I am, I remember when I was engaging in sex with some people, and I will see something in a porn, and I would think, "Oh, that will be sexy," and I will give that a try without having
Mm-hmm.
that conversation. And then I recognize over time, I also in diving deeper into learning more about consent and these important conversations, I realized, oh wait, what if that person was not comfortable with that?
Right.
What if
Right.
that person did not feel as though that they can mention how they were uncomfortable in that
Mm-hmm.
moment? And then
Mm-hmm.
that made me shift the way that I engage with people to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I know, because I don't want I did not want and still don't want for me to cause any kind of mental or physical harm to somebody just for a hookup or just
Right.
for engaging with me in the way I want to be engaged in, or just for my pleasure. I don't want them to leave that experience thinking that of me in a negative light, because I did not have these conversations with them, because I did not make sure that they were fully comfortable. And one of the things that I've learned, well, heard from a lot of people, well, a lot of men from my sexual past,
Mm-hmm.
they will tell me that, yeah, having sex with you was a lot different than what I've experienced with other people, because I felt comfortable, because
That's great.
I had they had the opportunity to voice or even just have a conversation after sex, because I'm big on aftercare and all of that. But
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
they can have these conversations with me, and it's not about I just invited them over just for a fuck and now you have to go.
Yeah.
They
Wow.
appreciated that I approach sex a lot
Mm-hmm.
differently than other people, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I should not be like an outcast in that. I should not be
No.
like the exception for many of
Right.
the sexual
Right.
partners that I've had.
Absolutely.
Why is it that I'm not the norm? Why is it that they don't find this a lot more often? But then again, when I think about my sexual experiences with
Mm-hmm.
people, I also recognize like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of you are traumatized. A lot of you are feeding it into the toxic parts of our culture
Mm-hmm.
rather than accepting yourself, rather than
Yep.
wanting to understand that you're not all about sex. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
more than just your sexuality. You're more than these things. Like you
Mm-hmm.
are a whole human being that's
Yes.
deserving of actual love and care during your sexual
Exactly.
experience. You're not just a
Right.
tool. So like that's one of the things that I battle on a regular basis, be it with the like developing a relationship with somebody, be it romantic or just sexual, or if it's just like, hey, you're horny, I'm horny. Can we just hook up and
Mm-hmm.
just let it do what it do?
Yeah.
And we just define whatever happens afterwards. We don't need to define it today. We're just here for the sex. But
Mm-hmm.
even with that, it's an issue because it's hard to even to communicate that with some people, because one, their level of communication is not
Mm-hmm.
up to par because we're
Right.
not taught to communicate with others. Two, just being consent forward is scary to other people because it's like, why are you acting this way? And I'm like, because I want to make sure I'm safe and you're safe. What's up? So it's just so much to it.
There really is. And yeah, you shouldn't be the norm. I mean, you
Mhm,
should be the norm, I should say. It shouldn't be
mhm,
like, you're the unicorn. I mean, I'm the same way with you. Like aftercare is huge for me. Um, we talked about this before. I'm all into the snacks with sex, and hydrating because it is like exercise and
mhm.
it could be fun. And then you also, it's feeding is a way of showing love for most people. And I think that's really great. And aftercare is huge. But like I said, the conversation before outside of the bedroom is so important. And then the conversation in the bedroom also. And then afterwards, like a recap. It's like when you have a meeting, and or a project you did together and you want to recap it, what worked and what didn't work. But it is really, it's kind of scary nowadays because you
Mhm.
just don't know. And I was married until 5 years ago, and so that's my, I'm middle aged. That's my entire whole life. So I
Mhm.
come out and I'm like, what is going on here now? And I'm pretty old fashioned, and especially now after what I've been through, I'm really protective of my body. Like if
Mm.
you have to earn the right to come here. And exactly.
Yes.
And that should be anybody. That shouldn't be just because I have been, raped multiple times. Um, it should be anybody feels that way. Like this is my body. I didn't create it, but I'm certainly going to protect it. in the
Mm.
sense that, I eat well also. I don't exercise as much as I should or whatever, but it's just nobody can touch me unless I say it. I have a shirt that I wear that says I decide. Um, and that's just, a thing. And we talked about this before. Like if somebody cheats and doesn't and sleeps with somebody else and they come to you, especially like when the next day, and they don't tell you, I feel like that's non-consensual sex
Mm.
because you don't know that they couldn't have caught something and came to you with it.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest thing is during COVID when that happened, people were cheating. Now you got a whole different thing to worry about in addition to STDs. Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
child,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh my God. So that was like a whole thing. And everybody was sleeping with everybody back then that I know of. But, because everybody was just scared and clueless. But,
Mm.
the thing about it is it's these conversations are so important because, well, obviously legally they're important, but your experience will be so much better once you have it.
Mm.
Because a lot of people also walk around and they either pretend that they don't know what they want because they don't want to tell you, they're afraid to tell you. Um, so I think if at this point, if you're like me, I'm the type of person where I don't really care what you think in regards to this is who I am. So there's this is what I am. This is what I want. This is what I like. This is what I'm willing to give to you. This is what I'd like from you in return. It's kind of like a job. I always say relationships are like a job, and a relationship could be a one night stand. Relationship could be, a weekend together, or you met somebody at, a party or a pride parade, and you want to go home. You got to have the conversation, and because it can go from really great and amazing to horrible in 2 seconds. And the
Mm.
reverse, it can go from really bad to like, oh, I didn't know you liked that, you know, and um, and that's really a big deal. And then you get consent. Consent just comes with that because
Yes.
and it's a natural flow. And there are ways to do it where it's done naturally, you
Right.
know.
Now, I think about the scene I wrote in my book
Hmm.
about it was related to consent, and I just remember sitting and just thinking about, oh, what do I want? What feels comfortable for me?
Hmm.
And I drafted that, and I just wrote the scene and building that,
Hmm.
and I even mentioned in there that the atmosphere just felt so right.
Yeah.
And then, the persons in that scenario, they start to
Hmm.
engage in sex and all this other stuff, and then I make a point to mention, but what was missing here? And that is
Right.
the conversation about sex, uh because just because a situation feels right for you doesn't always mean that it's right for another person. And that's the thing I
Very
really
true.
hate with a lot of the media that we indulge in. Like, yeah, I get it in terms of like cinematic reasons. We just
Hmm.
have to make it seem so very
Right.
magical, but most people don't have that knowledge of knowing that the atmosphere is not really there. Like the chemistry may not really be there, most definitely, since these people are just meeting each other,
Right.
and you have this person just go off and kiss this other person. Like,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
right for you is not right for
Not
me,
great for
because
me.
look, you don't
Yeah.
have the right scent to get me in the mood. You don't
Yep.
have the right
Yep.
vibes. The music ain't playing. Like, what did you
Yep.
think this was?
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Exactly. Yep. I agree with that. That's very, very true. And that kind of goes along with everything too. It's all about atmosphere, conversation,
Mhm.
all of that. And you really need to have that in order for it to be a really great experience.
Mhm.
And I mean, who knows? A one night stand can turn into something that's a great relationship
Exactly.
or vice versa, to be honest. So it can go from something where you think it's great, but if you don't vibe in the bedroom, there's no going. You can't fake that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you can't fake that.
Like, but to shift the conversation a little bit, still within rape culture, we need to
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and tackle it, because let's go off on it, because I know you got your feelings about it, and I know I got my own, because it impacts my dating experience every
Mm-hmm.
fucking day. And that's toxic masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, how do you feel about that?
It's there.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And it's funny because my gay daughter is like, she's like, I hate men. I hate cis men and it's just, it's terrible. It really is. It's so, I mean, I lived with that and I was surrounded by it with the guys that, were around me for so long. It's just, it's a horrible thing and I don't understand it. I really, I really don't understand it. I mean, in today's day and age, but then you've got politicians that are doing it. So,
Mm,
I mean, there are great role models for the opposite, um, but it, I don't even know. I don't even know how to stop that part of it.
it's
Um,
so it's tough.
it is tough. The challenge is that, well, see, I see that there's definitely a shift happening,
Mhm.
um, because it's kind of like, when something bad happens, you look for the heroes. If you look for the tragedy, you're going to find it. If you look for the heroes, you'll find those too. Um, I've been, I follow on social media a lot of men, a lot of couples that are the opposite of toxic masculinity. I have a good circle of men now that are they're my sheepdogs. They look out for me, and they are these strong, dominant, beautiful, kind, loving men that if something happened to you, they would help you. And it's the clear opposite. It's my buddy, and he's like the head of them. And so he told me there's three types of people. There's the sheepdog, the wolf, and the sheep. And the sheep are those that follow everybody else. They have really no
Mhm.
opinion on anything, whatever it is. They just do whatever. Then you've got the wolf, and that was my ex-husband. He wants to hurt everybody. They want to hurt anything around them. They'll eat anything. They'll just do anything they want. And then the sheepdogs are the ones that are protective. And I think that if you know those three, and it could be women too,
Mhm.
but I think that if you know those three different characteristics, then you can identify them, and this person's a wolf, then run, run and
Mhm.
hide, run, hide, block, done. If it's a sheep, you have to decide: is it someone that I want to be around? Because you've got toxic masculinity, then you have beautiful masculinity, and then you got nothing, like right in the middle. And then they're
Mhm.
just kind of existing. They're kind of existing. And I don't know, those guys I think will sway either way. Sometimes they'll be because they don't know who they are. It's
Yes.
usually the issue. And it could be from trauma and tragedy when they were children, losing a parent when they were young. It could be any of that, not having good role models. And I think that those are the kinds of people that sometimes will lean more towards a wolf if they're not careful. But they could have potential to be a sheepdog if they have the right training. And like, luckily, some of these guys that I know of, they do men's leadership retreats, and they turn some of these toxic masculine guys into sheepdogs, and it's unbelievable to watch. It's beautiful to watch.
Love that.
And yeah, it is. It's beautiful. And they strip them down to the bare bones of who they are as a human being, and they put them through physical exhaustion. And what happens is their pain comes through. And once that pain comes through, the toxicity is gone. It's like poison in their body.
Mm.
And I stay away from those guys because I can see them a mile away now, for sure. I could see them a mile away. And even if I have a hint, I walk away. It's not worth it. It really isn't. But a lot of them are actually sheep, and they don't know what to do, so they become toxic.
Mm.
But my thing is, like, if you don't, I tried to save everyone for a long time. Like, I'd be going to these parties where people are half naked and they're drinking or whatever, and they want me to put on a show, and I'm like helping them win their lives, you know. Or we'd end up at a strip joint because that's where my ex-husband wanted to go, and I'd be talking to the girls about their lives, and he's like, "Stop making friends with the strippers." Like, I was trying to help them, you know, and because everyone's got a story and everyone's
Mhm.
got pain, and the challenge with the men is that they think dominating somebody else is going to make them feel better,
Mm.
and in fact it might, but then they have to put their heads down on the pillow when they go to sleep, and then there's that little second and moment of consciousness that they realize that they aren't who they say they are. They're not who they project themselves.
Mm.
They might have to have a few drinks to eliminate it. I know quite a few of those guys. They'll drink themselves to oblivion right before they go to sleep, and they go to sleep. It's crazy. I've had conversations with them because these were what I thought were friends of mine,
Hmm.
and they'd be going to bed. We'd be on the phone, and I could hear the drinking being poured over and over and over and over again. And then it was like, boom, out, because they didn't want that moment when they put their heads down to be aware of anything. And it's sad. It's really sad. But,
It is.
and the challenge is that we do have a lot of people in our public view that are like this.
Mhm.
And it's justified.
And
It really is.
rationalized
It's rationalized. It's rationalized
and normalized.
and normalized. And
It's
it's
just
and
a
it's
lot.
scary. And it's scary. And
Hmm.
you know, it's tough. And anyone that's put into a position of power, and even if it's someone who thinks that they have power and they're CEO of
Hmm.
their own company, and you know, they're a company of two people. If they think they're a CEO, then they walk around out in the neighborhood, or they go to a bar and they walk around and they think that they're all this, and that's the narcissism that comes out.
Mm.
And then they're just rude to everyone, especially the waitresses or the servers or whatever it is. Usually the female. If you're talking about male, female, and heterosexual, then that's the case. You
Mm.
know, I haven't had any of that in the gay community. I haven't experienced it, whether it be male or female. I haven't experienced that because whether somebody is anatomically this or they identify as this, there's a masculine and a feminine in all of us.
Hmm.
And we might veer towards one versus the other a little stronger, but we all have that. Um,
Exactly.
and so I haven't experienced that I can remember at the moment. I just in the forefront of my head I've experienced it with men,
Hmm.
um, that I know personally, that I was married to, that I might be dating. I might experience it, but as a survivor, I go toe to toe with those people, absolutely. But I was also raised by a very strict parent. Both of them were very strict, and so I can see it from a mile away.
Yeah.
So.
And it's important to recognize it because it's a lot of mental trauma that is attached with it. And it's a
Mhm.
lot of insecurity that's attached to it as
Oh,
well, be it
absolutely.
from the
That's yeah.
person who holds the toxic
Hmm.
masculinity or the person that they projected it onto.
Yep.
And
All
it
of it.
makes there's this need for acceptance
Yep.
and validation in who this person happens to be as a man, most definitely
Hmm.
for the masculine presenting people. Like they need
Hmm.
the validation. And
Hmm.
I know for myself, I refuse to allow any other person to identify me for whatever reason that they feel the need to do so, or
Hmm.
feel as though that they have the right to take my man card or my like. I don't
Right.
care. Like if you feel as though I'm less of a man because of whatever I do, then I don't have to
Hmm.
associate myself with you
Hmm.
because who are you?
Right.
I'm not on this
Right.
earth to follow whatever you think.
Right.
I'm here to love myself and experience my life and enjoy
Absolutely.
my life how it goes. And I think it's needed to have those conversations, most definitely with a lot of young men, because they do fall in that trap. Because, like you mentioned, being sheep, you said that, like you said, they have the ability of being molded into a sheepdog. They have
Hmm.
the capabilities of being molded into a wolf.
Hmm.
They're at this point where you're
Hmm.
following. To me, I think when you said that there's just nothing there, I just thought
Hmm.
of a non-playable character, so an NPC. So it's like
Hmm. Hmm.
this is somebody who's waiting for their narrative to be made for them. And
Yep.
when you are able to detract that and bring them to something that's a lot more fulfilling for them, where they don't need the outside um motivations or outside voices to facilitate who they identify as, the
Hmm.
stronger that they become. And I think one of the things that really would tear down the walls of toxic masculinity is if a lot more people who hold that, most definitely men who hold that, are able to get into therapy, are able
Yep,
to get into accepting help from other people, accepting help for
absolutely.
themselves, and just acknowledging that, you know what, it is okay for me to cry. It is okay for me to feel the
Right,
things that I'm feeling. It is
right.
okay for me to have a moment to understand what is going on in my life in this moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you don't need to just like man up and move on and,
Exactly.
or what have you. And, I've had to really deal with that with my son
Mm,
because, he's had his father who did all these things, be his role model, so to speak, especially the last few years, because when we separated, my son chose to be with his father so that he could be the parent and take care of him because there were a lot of times we'd have to go pick him up from wherever he was drinking and what have you. And you know, my so my ex was habitually hiring people for himself um, for whatever reasons. There are a few reasons why somebody would do that. Well, he decided to do so for my son's 18th birthday. That was his birthday present.
mm,
Was to break his virginity with somebody who my son did not know or meet until that moment, and that's how that would be his first sexual encounter.
wow.
And I know, and my kid is really sweet. He's got so much empathy. He's the kind that um, again, he had his issues growing up and bullying, so he has a lot of empathy, and his empathy shows up with trying to help women, girls like his friends that have really toxic boyfriends, and he's just very kind. And he's a cool guy, and he's all masculine and boy, and he's so tough, but in a good way because he's not as tough as he wants to portray himself, but he'll drive, way out of his way to get a girl if she needs a ride home from her boyfriend's house. Cause, so he's a bit of a people pleaser, let's be honest. But that was his first encounter. And apparently, when he turned 21 during COVID, it was supposed to happen again. And, I said, what do you, no, I mean, it's COVID. Like, it's bad enough that you're doing that, but you've got, no, and I didn't know about what happened. I wasn't told until like an hour before on my kid's 18th birthday that was going on. I was left in the dark. It was planned with his buddy, my ex husband's friend. The two of them worked it out, and I wasn't told until an hour before it happened. When I was told, I was livid, as you can imagine any mother would be.
Mm,
And then I started finding that he was emailing, my ex-husband was emailing with the girl. And which another friend of mine realized that that's when my marriage started going downhill. Put those two together. Um, so so there's an opportunity there for my kid to become really toxic,
mm,
right? Because that's who he's been raised by as far as his male role model. Well, I refuse to let that happen because as a woman raising a son, I feel like I have a really big responsibility because I don't want him to be, or I should say, I want him to be somebody who is kind and loving and is not afraid of his own emotions and expresses them and talks to women and definitely consent. And he's all about consent. He tells me everything, whether I want to hear it or not, about his encounters now. Anytime he has sex, he has to tell me. And he tells me every detail. I'm like, you don't need to tell me every single detail, but it's very funny, right? And I mean, this is how we roll. So it's fine. But we talk about all this stuff, and I really feel like it's my responsibility because he's still impressionable,
mhm,
and to teach him about what he already knows what toxic masculinity is and what is the opposite thereof, and how being the opposite, it doesn't mean that you're a mama's boy, you know, it just means that you're a good guy. And well,
right.
what did good guys end up last? I'm like, that's not really true.
Mm-mm.
Good guys end up with good women or good men, whoever they want. I'm talking about his situation. So, and there's really a fear there, and because apparently the women are toxic. And again, we're talking about the heterosexual couple, just because that's my son. With my daughter, it's totally different. The women are toxic, he said, He said they want a guy who's an asshole. They don't want somebody who's nice to them. And he says they're horrible too. And I said, you know what? The one time that you're going to be nice to someone, I bet she'll have a friend that's nice, or you'll meet that person that suits you. I said, so you don't change your character based on who you're with. Change who you're with,
Mhm.
not your character.
Exactly.
You know, and for my daughter, who's gay, she's had good experiences from what I know of. She hasn't quite dated anybody yet. She's 18, and it's funny. My son and his best girlfriend, who's also gay, took her to a club the other night where they allow 18 and over, and apparently she had a really great time, and everybody was so nice to her. I was told, and it was really great that that was her first experience with other women in that scene because I was really nervous about that because that really
Hmm.
that first impression makes like, is this is this going to work out for me in my life,
Mm.
or is this going to be like going to high school and the girls are going to be mean to me? Well, no, it's not, because it's a different kind of relationship. It's a different kind of meeting. You're meeting in different ways and different terms. Your values are more aligned. So those are my thoughts on toxic masculinity.
Oh no, it's beautiful thoughts as well.
So,
Like, um, you triggered a memory when you were talking about how you wanted her to have just like you were happy about her first experience being
mm-hmm.
such a positive one because it
Yeah,
really does set a tone
it
for
does.
a lot of people. And I thought about just even my first sexual experience
Mm-hmm.
and how I well, willingly,
Mm-hmm.
my first willing sexual experience. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted that to be something where I felt safe, and I wanted it to be something that I was more comfortable with. And just from my experience with that first person, I did not accept anything less than that for any other person I decided to engage with. And
Mm-hmm.
because I had just that as the peak at the
Mm-hmm.
time, I was like, if you're not providing this energy, I just don't want it. I
Yep,
just don't want it. And I think
exactly.
that's the importance of having the patience and having the comfort and knowing yourself before going into certain situations that
Mm-hmm.
may go either way, positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
And if you surround yourself with people, most definitely if it's engaging in a community that you're a part of, but
Mm-hmm.
you're still, baby gay,
Right,
but like,
exactly. She's totally a baby. That's so cute. I love that. I
like,
forgot about that term.
right? And just knowing that, oh, this can be amazing because I've experienced many toxic gay
Mm-hmm.
areas, like
Yeah,
gay
I'm sure.
clubs and everything like that.
Yeah.
And you just like, I'm extremely uncomfortable in here. But I've also experienced those that were just loving and just very, it just brings life into you. And those things
Mm-hmm.
last so long. But to close out, well, we're still going to do
Mm-hmm.
a would you rather. And I got a
Okay.
good one for you too. But let's talk about that proposal culture,
Mm.
because like many people don't associate proposals and doing proposals and all that with rape culture, but it's very related. Uh, so, what is your take on proposal culture in general?
I think it's horrible what's going on now.
Hmm.
I was proposed to within 2 months of meeting my ex-husband, and he proposed to me in front of 100 people, and I was stunned and shocked and full of fear. We had talked about getting married and that sort of thing, but it was so new.
Hmm.
And there's all of our family and all of our friends, and somebody leading a service, and all of a sudden, the eyes are on me, and it happened so quickly. Before I know it, he's on his knee, and I was like, "What is happening?" And I looked over at my parents, and I was like, "What's going on?" And they were all excited. And you know, I read an article today about this. Like, what if that person didn't want to do it?
Hmm.
And the article certainly was about the fact that the person said yes, and then they went home, and then she really, told them the truth about it. But I mean, there was a party planned for us and everything at my house that I had no idea was going on. So I didn't say anything for like a minute, minute and a half. And they're finally like, well, and I said, yeah, yes. And he wanted to get married immediately. But within a year and a half, we got married, started a business, had a child, bought a house, everything. Now I know better. Um, but the whole proposing in front of a group of people, prom proposals, all of that needs to end. It puts way too much pressure on both parties, really. I think a lot of the times, of course, now social media with whatever they're doing, and then parents, and it's really nobody's business but those two people. And I think we need to get back to sacred ground. I think that too much is out there in the open. There's too much being posted. There's too much, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do about her conversations. I don't know what to tell him. I don't know if I should be with this guy. There's too much of us spreading our thoughts and questioning what we should do and getting help from other people. Yes, some of that is necessary and good, but and listen, I'm guilty myself. We need to go within and stop reading all the articles or looking at the social media stuff. I mean, it's so much information. It's amazing that any of us get up, shower, and go out of our house. Because I mean, I know from my head, like my brain hurts at the end of the day or even halfway through the day from all this stuff, because I'm also a constant, I like to read and take notes and things like that. So I look for information. But just on social media, it's so much. It's way too much. And, I know now that my last child has graduated high school and going to college, like the whole promposal thing, who started that and why?
Right.
I mean, honestly, my girlfriend are like, who sent out the first dick pic? And what girl said, oh, that's great. Where did that start? I mean, right? Like whose brilliant idea was that? And what woman was like, or man was like, oh, wow, that's sexy. Give me another one. I don't know. We were just laughing about that the other day, but we're middle-aged. I mean, listen, there are some sexy ones, but we were just, I don't know, it's just something, it's funny. After a couple of drinks, you laugh about that kind of thing. But true, like who had the nerve to do that? But anyway, so it's the same idea. It's like enough already with the proposing and, going to a shopping mall and like breaking out into song and then, the guy getting on his knee or whatever it is. Let it be sacred. Have a conversation about it. Because maybe somebody isn't ready. Maybe they want to be with you and they love you. Maybe in a few years. But, they'd want to talk to you and say, I'll wear the ring, but I don't want to get married for a few more years. I don't want to get married till I finish school. I don't want to get married till I become a doctor. Or I don't want to get married until I heal myself. Or I'm not ready because I'm still traumatized. I'm still traumatized from my marriage. I'm not ready to think about the rest of my life. I'm just trying to get through the day. Like, I'm just trying to figure out how to, get through the weekend, whatever it is. And that pressure is just, I mean, it's pressure for both. It really is. I mean, I'm not opposed to asking someone to marry me if that were something that I wanted, but usually it's the more masculine or the man, whatever it is in that situation. I would not want to be that person either. It's a lot of pressure. And to do that in front of a big group of people and to do that too soon, it shouldn't be. I mean, it's different with the older generations. They were supposed to get married when they were in their teens or late teens. And, my parents were married for well over 60 years. And that's rare. And it's a beautiful thing. And we talk about it and celebrate it. And we've got a lot of kids. I mean, they were having sex left and right every day. I don't know how, but the oldest takes care of the youngest. So, anyway, but I don't even know how they proposed or if they eloped. Who knows? But it's something that should be sacred. That's my take on it. I feel like conversations need to be sacred. Too many people are talking to their exes about their current relationship. Why? What is that all about?
Exactly.
That I don't get. If you want to be with them, be with them. If you don't, don't.
Exactly.
I mean, why mess up? It's a horrible situation. If you're doing that, just stop. It's not necessary.
Yeah, I agree
At all.
with you on
Yeah.
everything. Like with the proposals, there is a lot of pressure that's put on the person. There's even the fear of rejection of the
Right.
proposal that the other
Right.
person has to deal with because that's a possibility. It's just so
Absolutely.
much anxiety that is within public
Too
proposals.
much.
And I agree. Keep those things private. And just if
Right.
you want everybody to know, just have an engagement party after
Right.
everybody's engaged and everybody knows
Exactly.
about it. Look, y'all,
Right.
this is what happened. And now
Right.
you get to celebrate together. It takes
Right.
away that anxiety. You know that they're proposing because it's
Mm-hmm.
something that they want to do, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
because they either love you so much that they didn't want to fear, they didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to reject you in public
Yep.
and have you feel some type of way about that,
Mm-hmm.
or if they just genuinely are not ready. It's like
Yeah.
it's so much that deals with
Yeah.
it, and
I
even.
mean,
Mhm.
yeah.
Like even with the thing about conversations with X, yeah, or even going to
Mm,
social media for all your problems, it
right.
does need to be limited. I get
Yeah.
if you're looking for professional help, then make
Right.
sure that you're in the professional settings for those
Right.
conversations. Make sure
Right.
that it's a group that is that you know that there's at least somebody that's in there that's a coach, therapist, or what have you, who
Right.
can look at you specifically and give you a generalized
Right.
answer, as well as give you some opportunity to pay for their services so that you
Mm-hmm.
can get everything that you need to help out your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, even for myself, I do, chat with my ex every now and again,
Mm-hmm.
but not because of like any kind of relationship problems. The only
Mm-hmm.
time I communicated with my ex about a relationship is when I asked him how I was in our relationship so
Okay.
I can
That's
improve
healthy.
for a
That's
better
beautiful.
relationship
I love
because
that. That's
like
beautiful. Really, that
like
is. That's great.
that's the kind of conversation that is only for me
Mm-hmm.
to do better going forward,
Love it.
and not to continue to look back because
Mm-hmm.
that's not what I want. It's not the relationship
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted at the time, and it's
Mm-hmm.
great. And we both have that understanding that we're probably not ever going to get back together, and that's
Yeah.
great for the both of us.
Right.
So it's like that's the only kind of conversation about relationships that I'm comfortable with having with with an ex. If he
Yeah.
asked me, "Oh, what was things like in our relationship so I can improve for, the future of my
Mm-hmm.
next relationship?" Of course, I will let you know. This is what I had an issue with. This is what was unhealthy, and this is where I actually loved about you, and
Mm-hmm.
this is what was beneficial towards our relationship together. And that's about
Mm-hmm.
it. That's all the conversation
Yeah.
that we need to
I
have.
love that. Yeah,
Like,
I love that. I love that. No, that's really great. That's very healthy, actually.
mhm,
That's a great idea. And then, if you're someone talking to your ex and you meet someone, I think the conversation needs to be had. Listen,
mhm,
I'm still talking to my ex. Maybe we can meet. This is why I'm talking to them. And then you give them the choice. Again, it's consent. You give them the choice. Do they want
mhm.
to be with you? Do they want to meet your ex? Whatever. And then you have to have that boundary, whereas I'm not going to talk about my new relationship with my old relationship.
Mhm.
I'm not going to mix the two because that's just
So
not healthy for anybody.
it's not like having
No.
those conversations is very important. Even like
Right.
with the situation I'm in, with my person, like I even communicate that with people that I hook up with just in case they catch feelings, or if they caught feelings, I can have the conversation at that point. Or if
Hmm.
if we're moving towards like a friends with benefit kind of situation, I let them know, hey, there's this other person that's here.
Perfect.
We're figuring these things out about what we are going to be,
Hmm.
and in that process, just let you know you're not going to be a priority because I'm prioritizing this relationship over
Right.
anything else.
Right.
But it's all about the communication. If you decide to stay, cool. If things happen and I start to reconnect or disconnect with one of the people, we are going to have the conversation
Hmm.
because it's
Right.
important. I don't want anybody to be blindsided about, oh my gosh, Vernon doesn't like me anymore, or he doesn't love
Hmm.
me anymore. No, we're going to talk about it.
Love that. That's really great.
It's all about
And
these healthy conversations. We need them.
right. Absolutely. No matter what. And the only challenge is that when you've got somebody who's really traumatized,
Mm,
um, unable to have the conversation. I mean, I've been in that boat myself. And sometimes you're so like, I've been so triggered where I can't talk about
mm,
whatever situation, or I need a moment, or I need a day, or even 2 days And, you know, that person has to, again, decide if this is someone they want to be with or not. And if so, they give them that space. Um, a lot of times when people are traumatized, they really don't want the space. They might say that they do, but they don't want to. Um, so that's a little tricky. And I would say most people that are traumatized who don't talk about their stuff in a healthy way usually want someone to hear them.
Mm.
And it's somewhat the opposite. They've got such a protective wall, I love myself included. You know, so you can email me, contact me on my website. I'll talk to you all day long about it. No, seriously, because I would understand somebody who hasn't had severe, intense trauma won't understand that. They won't see it, and they might take you at face value, but what you're saying is not what you really mean. And
Mm.
and you know, and they'll see it as manipulation, where someone who's been through a lot will see it as I'm just protecting myself. So that could be a whole nother show for us.
Right. Now, look,
But
I'm
it's
always
true.
open to it.
Yeah, but it's true. Very true.
Mm. That's actually reframing some conversations that I've recently had
Okay.
that I might need to revisit.
Okay.
So, but
Taking your notes.
right, take my notes.
Hmm.
But are you ready for a would you rather?
Oh gosh, here we go again. Let's see. Go
Yes,
ahead.
and I
Go
think
ahead.
I feel like I know your answer to this.
Right. Yeah, I love
Um,
it. Let's hear it. You probably
so,
do.
would you rather give up kissing for the rest of your life or give up any foreplay?
You know, wait. Wait? It depends on the kissing. It depends on the foreplay. Is it like is it like amazing kissing and amazing
Ooh.
foreplay? Because
Ooh,
I
let's
do. I
go with
mean, we
that.
do love the
Yes.
kissing. I don't know. I'll have to go with I can't give up the kissing. Kissing is foreplay.
It
Listen,
already
My
is.
body's gonna react the same way if it's that good. We talked about the splash pad needed. Splash zone, baby. Put on your goggles.
Like
Michelle's getting some kissing.
I feel like for me, it
Yeah,
would have to
let's hear
be I have to give up the kissing. Like
it. Okay.
I do enjoy like if I really connect with a person and I really like
Right.
them, I want to kiss them. I
Yeah, of course.
enjoy the
That's
moment
what
of
I was
kissing.
thinking. Yes, yes, that's what I was thinking actually.
But like
But
I
I
feel like for
know.
foreplay, all right, if the kissing is like all
Hmm.
versions of kissing, then I
Hmm.
cannot do that. I cannot do that because I like to kiss down my partner's body. I like
Yes,
to do all the
yes,
different things when it
yes.
comes to that in terms of foreplay. So if I have to give that up,
Hmm.
then of course I have to keep the kissing.
Hmm.
But if I can
Hmm.
if it's just like oral kissing,
Hmm.
oh, I could give that up any day.
Well,
Like
I'll
we
say it's your question, so you can do it. But here's my thought on it. You want to hear this?
mhm, mhm.
So if the kissing is that good, of which I have had, I can do my own foreplay.
Mm.
That.
It does say it
Hmm.
did say any
Hmm.
foreplay though. So I think
Hmm. I
personal
could do my
foreplay.
right. I could do my own foreplay while I'm being kissed, and
Mhm.
we'll still need that splash pad. As long as she's hydrated,
Right.
everybody's in trouble. Excuse me. As long as
Right.
she's hydrated, everyone's in trouble.
Keep the girl well
Exactly. Yes.
hydrated.
Moves, right?
Oh, Michelle, I appreciate you
Uh-huh.
so much.
Hmm.
Is there
Same here.
any last words that you would like to share with the audience before I close this out?
I mean, I could say the same last words, which is trust your instincts on a person. I don't always do it either, and it gets me in trouble every time. But, you know, trusting your instincts on whether the person's good for you versus trusting the instincts of whether or not this person is safe for me are two different things. Being good
Mm,
for you and being safe for you are two different things. And, you know, if everyone around you is telling you to run for a reason, then run. Because sometimes we just don't see what's so obvious,
mm,
honestly. We're so busy looking at like the fat we got on our bodies, or we think we do in the mirrors, but yet we've got a person next to us that is hurting us and we can't see that. I mean, that's how ridiculous that is. So that was just an example. But you
mm,
know what I mean? It's so other people will be able to see that and not us, because we're not focused on that. We're focused on what we want them to be. Um, and then, you know, consent, no matter what, conversations, consent, Oh, here's one. Conversations, consent, and condoms.
Mm.
Listen, my kid throws out, condoms at Planned Parenthood. They have free condoms and they have they're we've got all kinds. She's got a gallon size bag. There's all different colors, there's flavors, sizes, all that. There's female condoms that they give out. Planned Parenthood is a great organization. They do exams. Look at me, I'm doing like an advertisement for them.
Right. It's okay.
I mean, they
Continue.
do. I mean, listen, they do exams. I mean, I'm middle aged. They went and they did an exam for me. They send out for mammograms. They do blood work. I mean, it's a great, I had no idea. No idea. They test for cancers. I mean, everything. It's not just an abortion clinic. That's not what they do.
Mhm.
They do everything. So, and it's a great, clean, healthy, safe place. You have to be buzzed in there. It's very, very clean. It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe it when I went there. And they have everything you need. Feminine products. Sorry, guys, feminine products. But the condoms are there. I mean, y'all can walk in and get it. I mean, they have a little brown bag, and then they have boxes of condoms, so you can get as many as you want. Nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
I filled a whole bag, and because she had asked me to get some that she could hand out, and I was like, party of one. And all these young girls are looking at me like, okay, have fun. Very funny. It was not. It wasn't for me.
I'm a firm believer in staying with condoms, regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and there's all sorts of kinds there, so and they're free, so there's no excuses. And there's Planned Parenthood everywhere. Everywhere,
Yes.
I found out. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Same here.
Well,
Same
to the
here.
audience, thank you all so much for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. And just in case no one else told you this today, you are beautiful, you are worthy of happiness and joy, you are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.holiloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.